All right, my dear friends, so let us continue our study in the history of creation with special focus on the history of evil and also of all the evil creatures, the three prominent ones in particular that are whose stories are told in the Bible. One called an angelic being called the Anointed Cherub, another one who was a corporeal flesh and blood man called Lucifer, and lastly a serpent dragon beast called Satan. Okay. As far as these angels whose stories we're going to study in some detail, we are told that they are locked away in hell, which is where we finished off last time. So let us continue. So there are three ages of evil, and there are three fallen ones: an angel, a man, and a beast. So it is commonly taught that the anointed cherub, Lucifer, and Satan are one and the same creature. This is not from the Bible. There are three princes of evil in the Bible who were the chief rulers of evil in three different ages of time. The evil ones through the history of creation were not just fallen angels, but also fallen men and fallen beasts as well. So let's begin, as I have taught in this series previously, that biblically speaking, time can be divided into four ages. The first one was the age of construction and building, when evil did not yet exist, entropy and corruption had not yet entered God's creation. So it was a perfect creation called the Golden Age. So the Golden Age came to an end in Ezekiel 28, verse 15, where we are told that thou, the anointed cherub, who is the father of evil in God's creation, was perfect in thy ways from the day that thou was created till iniquity or evil was found in thee. So yes, on that day, that golden age came to an end because evil and darkness had been born in God's creation. So the next age would be the silver age, because each subsequent age, which were the next three ages, the silver, bronze, and age, are ages of evil, and these are inferior, each one, from the previous one. So just as the silver age became inferior to the golden age because the perfection came to an end, so too, as we shall see, the bronze and the iron ages became even more inferior. So the silver age of evil is the age of the evil angels, you could say, of the anointed cherub, who was their leader. He is an angelic or a spirit creature. He is not a corporeal flesh and blood creature of the earth. Evil was born in the golden age when iniquity or evil was discovered in the anointed cherub, a mighty prince of angels, whose story we can read about in Ezekiel chapter 28. Although the term fallen angels is rightly applied to the group of angels who first rebelled against God, led by this anointed cherub, it does not apply to Lucifer, whose rulership of evil came much later, and who was a man and not an angel. It also does not apply to the present-day prince of darkness, namely to Satan, who, like Lucifer, was not an angel created by God in his beginning. The original fallen angels, that is, a group of angelic beings that God created in the beginning, some of whom rebelled and sinned against God, are presently locked away in hell, and they will never rise again or break out of there to do any more evil in creation forever. They are there till the day of judgment. This group of angels is the only group to whom the term fallen angels can apply. So the Silver Age was followed by the Bronze Age. And again, these ages are named, there are some divisions in them, because one of the differences between, say, the Silver and the Bronze Age, or the Bronze and the Iron Age, is who was the chief prince of evil in that age. In the Silver Age, it was obviously the anointed cherub. But in the Bronze Age, that baton of evil, the crown of evil, was passed on to Lucifer, who was not an angel. So that's why the Silver Age changes over to the Bronze Age. And then from the Bronze Age, we come into the present Iron Age, in which the chief prince of evil is Satan, the serpent dragon beast. So the Bronze Age was the second age of evil, the age of Lucifer. Lucifer was not an angel, but one of the races of celestial men called sons of God in the Bible. Lucifer and his army of rebellious sons of God, celestial men, they are celestial men, are presently locked away in the bottomless pit, which is not hell. This is not the same place where the angels are locked up, okay? So this is not hell or Tartarus, this is the bottomless pit. I believe Lucifer is the Greek god Apollo, and he will rise again during the time of Revelation 9 as the angel of the bottomless pit. Angel means a spirit creature created by God. In the Bible, that's who an angel is. It's a spirit that has been created by God. Okay? Angel does mean a spirit creature created by God, like the anointed cherub, but it can also mean a disembodied spirit, a creature that was once flesh but now exists only as a spirit without a body. So we make a distinction between angels that have been created by God and then these other evil spirits that are around today, which have become, they're also qualified to be called angels, but they are not the original group of angels that God created who sinned against him. These are a different category of creatures about whom we shall study a little bit later on when we get to the story of Lucifer and of Satan. So, angel does mean a spirit creature, but it can be a spirit that was created by God, or it can be a disembodied spirit. Like in the present time, the creatures are called demons, who did exist once as flesh and blood, but now are disembodied, so they are disembodied spirits. Therefore, all creatures called angels are not spirit beings that God himself created as spirit beings, like the host of heaven that God made, about which we read in Genesis chapter 2, for example. None of the evil spirits of the present Iron Age had their origin as angels. They began as either flesh and blood sons of God, or as corporeal beasts like serpents, hybrids, and many other kinds of beasts. So then from the Bronze Age you move to the present Iron Age of Satan, the serpent, dragon, beast. He is the chief prince of darkness at this present age. The present Iron Age is the third age of evil in the Bible. It's the age of Satan. Most people have been who is called the God of this world. Most people have been falsely led to believe that Satan was the anointed cherub, now a fallen angel. This is not taught in the Bible. The Bible clearly teaches that Satan is and has always been a serpentine dragon beast, calling him the great red dragon and old serpent in Revelation chapter 12 verse 9 and in Revelation 20 verse 2. Satan once existed as a physical, corporeal creature, as a serpentine dragon beast, never as an angel of God. He originated as a creature of flesh, not as an angel in spirit form. Although he now exists as a disembodied spirit, he most likely exists as a disembodied spirit. The evil spirits of the present age, though called angels, as for example in Revelation chapter 12 verse 7, are not angels that God created in the beginning, but are disembodied spirits who were once flesh but now continue to exist only in spirit form. These are the evil spirits in the Bible, also called demons in many cultures. This is why evil spirits desire to possess people in order to use their bodies for their own lustful activities, which they engaged in when they existed in bodily form. They lust for a body that they no longer possess. Devilish wisdom is called sensual in James chapter 3 verse 15, because Satan the devil and his evil spirits, also called the evil angels in the Bible, are driven by their senses. Their former bodily senses still drive them even though they no longer possess a body. Therefore, they greatly desire to possess people, to use their bodies to satisfy their own ungodly sensual lusts. So having understood that, evil is not limited to just the race of angels, but in the Bible it clearly teaches us that it was born and advanced and matured in three different categories of creatures, one an angelic being, one a man, and one a beast, okay? So now let us continue and study about these fallen angels. First of all, that there is a hierarchy of angels and the host of heaven. They are separated into orders and ranks. So the Bible leaves no doubt that the cosmos is not vast empty space, but filled with living creatures in worlds on earth, worlds in the heavens, and worlds underneath the earth. Celestial heavenly creatures, such as the cherubim and angels, are amongst those who dwell in the heaven, which is the city of God, and in the heavenly realms above the earth. Creatures of spirit, angelic beings, and even all evil spirits are divided into various orders and ranks. As for example, for Satan's kingdom, we are told in Ephesians, for example, that there are principalities and powers and thrones and dominions. It's divided into different categories, just like a military order. So this, what you're looking at on the screen, this is something I took from Wikipedia. So this hierarchy of angels shown here is from a Wikipedia article. Division of angelic beings into orders and ranks dates back to the 5th or 6th century AD. There is no way to confirm the authenticity of these orders as presented here. Okay, but what we do know from the Bible is that such a hierarchy does exist. The graphic on the left is also from the same Wikipedia page, but it is obvious from the occult pyramid symbol on top that these medieval graphics, especially coming out of Europe, are not God-inspired, they are satanic. So all the artwork that you see in cathedrals and churches and such places all over Europe, it is definitely very, very satanic in its origin, not something that is godly. However, in the orders of angels as ethereal creatures of spirit, the cherubim, in whom we have a great deal of interest, because the father of evil was a cherub, and cherubim is a plural of the singular cherub. So the cherubim are either ranked the highest or the second highest in these orders after the seraphim. Technically speaking, it may not even be correct to identify the cherubim or the seraphim as angels, since they do not serve as messengers, but seem to hold the higher office as did the anointed cherub. It may be more accurate to state that there exist celestial, heavenly creatures that are not flesh and blood, but they may not be all the same kind of creatures. An angel is certainly not a cherub, and the cherubim too may not be races of angels, but an entirely different category of creature altogether. So while many angels joined the anointed cherub in his rebellion, but that might have been because he was higher than the angels with greater power and authority, that was admired by the angels, at least by some of them. So cherubim and angels, they were the first inhabitants of creation. Okay, one of the fictions that is taught in the churches, especially in these corrupt Bible versions, which begin, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, whereas in the King James or the 1611 we read clearly that in the beginning God created the heaven, and the earth. He created these two single places, the heaven, which is the city of God, and the earth, okay? Not everything at once, which also means that he didn't snap his fingers and all the creatures, all the angels, all the sons of God, all the other beasts, etc., they sprang up into existence instantaneously. No, creation progressed over a period of time and slowly, in my opinion, okay? So the Bible teaches that God, the perfect creator, began creation in perfection, inhabited by perfect creatures. At some point in time, long after the beginning of creation and the formation of the heavens and the earth, one high-ranking angelic being of the order of the cherubim began to think of himself as God's equal, or perhaps even being superior to God. Eventually, he rebelled against God, joined by many angels in his rebellion. As shown previously, there is a defined hierarchy of the host of heaven, which are God's armies in the heavenly realms. There are different orders and ranks of angelic beings, and like a military organization, angels are divided according to their order and rank within the order, such as archangels within the greater order of angels. So what exactly is an angel in the Bible? What I can tell you is they're definitely not chubby babies with wings. So an angel is an ethereal spirit being that does not possess a material body of flesh and blood. However, they may sometimes appear in the form of a man, as they do throughout the Bible. But that doesn't make them flesh and blood. They're still spirit beings. They just appear as man. Spirit means wind. So angels are creatures made out of air, or they are ethereal creatures, as opposed to creatures of flesh who are corporeal, that is, they have a body of flesh, such as mankind. Mankind is corporeal, because we have a body. Angels, angels do have shape and form and are made of elements of wind and fire, but they're not made of the elements of the earth, so they're not, what we think of as flesh, as solid creatures. They're more like the air or the wind, which we can feel, but we can't really see or hold, okay? So they have a different elements that they're made out of. So angels do have shape and form and are made of the elements of wind and fire, most likely electrical fire, as described by the prophet Ezekiel in his visions in the book of the prophet. And in Psalm 104, we can read, verse 4, we can read, who makes his angel spirits his ministers of flaming fire. They are creatures of energy with intelligence and varying degrees of power. There is a hierarchy of ethereal, heavenly spirit creatures grouped together as angels, with the cherubim being near the top of this hierarchy. The word angel in Hebrew is malach, and it is H4397, and it is angelos or angelos in Greek, G32. Both the Hebrew and the Greek word means messenger, one that brings news, tidings, or God's instructions to man, and possibly to other creatures. However, angels are not simply messengers, but also serve in various administrative offices in the management and operation of God's creation, such as angels that manage winds, or waters, or fire, and the other elements in creation, even the heavenly bodies, such as the sun or the moon. Some higher ranking orders of angelic beings, such as the cherubim and the seraphim, are also found in very close proximity to God. They seem to be his confidants, in close fellowship with him. God gave man knowledge of himself and of the earth and of the world. Angelic beings such as the cherubim must also have been given great knowledge and power by God from their beginning. Some angels are called mighty in the Bible, and the anointed cherub was said to be full of wisdom. This helps us to understand why some of them rebelled against God. These mighty celestial beings were builders of worlds, and they also possessed the knowledge of life, of genetic sciences, which knowledge was used by the anointed cherub for evil purposes in the evil ages that followed the golden age of the perfect beginning of creation. Now there actually exist many celestial spirit worlds and terrestrial worlds of flesh in the heavens and the earth. And the Bible confirms this, that God did not make just one world, but many. For we can read in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 3, for example, through faith we understand that the worlds, which is a plural here, were framed by the word of God. So, there are ethereal, celestial worlds of spirit in the heavenly realms, and then there are natural, of course, the natural corporeal world of flesh on the earth, which we can all see with our own eyes. And again in Hebrews 1:2 we can read, by whom also he made the worlds. The Bible teaches that there are many worlds or planes in creation. These worlds exist in the celestial heavenly realms up above, also on the surface of the earth, and also beneath the earth, under the waters, and in subterranean regions of the earth. The visible part is but a small part, probably the smallest of all the worlds that exist, both above and below the surface of the earth. And again, we can read in 1 Corinthians 15:40, for example, that there are celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial. Terrestrial means the earth. Okay, so in the celestial bodies, there are dwelling celestial creatures, and in the terrestrial body dwell creatures of flesh like man. The diagram on the right is from Hindu cosmology, which I believe has some truth in it, as does the diagram on the left from the popular role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons, depicting many worlds and many planes of existence. All information has some truth in it, which can help add detail to the absolute truth that is found in the Bible alone. These worlds are inhabited by celestial, ethereal, supernatural creatures, generally referred to as angels, or by evil spirits, but they're also inhabited by corporeal creatures of flesh and blood. Some right here on earth, who we can see, man is, a typical example of a flesh and blood creature. But these corporeal creatures, many of them like man, who are called sons of God, they also still exist in many worlds in creation, about whom we have little or no knowledge whatsoever. So, creation is inhabited by celestial, ethereal, supernatural creatures, generally referred to as angels or by evil spirits, but it is also inhabited by corporeal creatures of flesh and blood, very much like man and the beasts on the earth. Okay. In Revelation chapter 5, verse 13, we read, "And every creature which is in heaven." Now, this identifies the places where life or living creatures are found. Every creature which is in heaven, which is the city of God above, and on the earth, okay, and then on the surface world of the earth, which is the world of man, for example, and under the earth. See, he's talking about creatures, and he's not talking about some kind of worms or something. He's talking about intelligent creatures, intelligent life exists under the earth and also in the sea. So everywhere we look, there is life. The cosmos is filled with life. In the cosmos, what we call the universe these days, there are an unknown number of ethereal, celestial worlds of spirit in the heavenly realms, and natural, corporeal worlds of flesh on and inside the earth, filled with a near infinite variety of creatures, both spirits and flesh. So as written in Hebrews 1:2 and in Hebrews 11:3, God made many worlds. Revelation 5:13, among other scriptures, tell us that the worlds are filled with inhabitants. And by inhabitants, it meant intelligent inhabitants, not just beasts. The graphic Hindu cosmology gives us a general idea of the shape of creation, with each layer representing a different world. In my opinion, creation is shaped like an hourglass, with the visible world of mankind, referred to as the earth, being the smallest, and situated in the middle where the waist of the hourglass would be. Unlike the graphic Hindu cosmology, where the earth in the middle is the widest point of creation, I believe that both the celestial, heavenly realms above and the subterranean regions below get wider and bigger the higher or deeper one goes, with the visible surface area of the earth being the smallest. The significance of the size and dimensions of creation and the innumerable inhabitants that dwell in it will become apparent as we continue the study in the history of creation, with special emphasis on the history of evil in God's creation. In Psalm 48:2, we read, "Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great King." So in the graphic of Hindu cosmology and in many ancient cultures, a mountain was shown in the middle of the earth, often called Mount Meru, which I believe is the real Mount Zion, or the Mount of Congregation in the Bible, which is the location of God's city here on earth. Yes, God does have a city here on earth where he meets with celestial men, the sons of God, who still dwell in worlds or planes right here on earth that are hidden from us, as we read in Job chapter 1 and 2. The center of the earth on old maps was what we call the North Pole today. There were also 4 rivers that flow out of this mountain, the Mount Meru, just as they did from the Garden of Eden in the Bible. Understanding the true cosmology of creation helps us to understand the near infinite dimensions of creation and the unknown number of worlds that exist in dimensions and planes hidden from us. Now, these worlds were built over time, and God's creatures, such as the cherubim, have played a significant role as builders of celestial heavenly worlds and of dark, hellish, subterranean worlds beneath our feet. The knowledge and power that God gave the anointed cherub and his angels is truly beyond our comprehension. So when we study his history, it will be easier to understand that with such godlike knowledge and powers, it is not surprising that he began to think of himself as God. And some members of the various orders of angels, as well as some of the sons of God's celestial men, came to look upon him with reverence and awe as a godlike figure. God gave him knowledge and power that rivaled his own for reasons that will become clear later. So again, you can see on the screen, these are some old maps. Mercator is a very famous map maker from the 16th century, and his what's called the Mercator projection is still used in our maps to this very day. So Mercator's old map of the earth from the late 1500s, showing the North Pole as a land mass. And this was quite common in maps from those days. They always showed a lot of land around in the middle in the area where we have the North Pole today. So Mercator's old man map of the earth from the late 1500s, showing the North Pole as a land mass, not a body of frozen water as we are falsely taught these days. Mount Meru is in the middle, and 4 rivers are shown flowing out of the base of the mountain. I believe Mount Meru is Mount Zion, directly above which is set the North Star named Polaris. Christmas trees shaped like a mountain with a star on top are symbolic of the real Mount Zion, with its top stretching up to heaven and crowned with the North Star. Nimrod and his cohorts were attempting to build something like Mount Meru, whose top would reach into heaven when they were building the Tower of Babel in Genesis chapter 11. Mount Zion may also be a gateway to the heavenly realms or even into heaven, like the ladder that Jacob saw in his dream, on which angels were ascending and descending up to heaven, as you can read in Genesis chapter 28, verse 12. In this world controlled by the Father are lies. Just about everything we are told is a lie, including the geography of the earth and the cosmology of the heavenly realms. These lies are told to hide the true shape of creation and of the earth, which reveals clearly the Creator through His creation, as we can read in Psalm 19, verses 1 to 3, and in Romans 1:20. The more we learn, the more we realize how little we actually know. The history of the cherubim begins very early on in creation. They were probably the first creatures that God created. And they were also the first builders of worlds in creation, because we understand, as we have been looking at, that there are worlds above and worlds below. When were they built and by whom? For one thing, in Hebrews chapter 3, verse 4, among many, many other places in the Bible, we read that He that built all things is God. Okay? So God's creation is far bigger than we can begin to imagine, filled with a near infinite number and variety of creatures. Just as any city or region, such as the Americas, develop and grow over time, so too is true of all creation. What we see today and what is invisible to us did not spring up instantaneously, but developed and grew over time. We are told in Hebrews 3:4 and many other scriptures that He that has built all things is God. However, it is also clear from the Bible that God works through His creatures in building, administering, managing, and operating His creation. It is more than likely that the cherubim were among the first intelligent creatures created by God, and that they were builders of the celestial worlds that came into existence over time, just as Adam's children have built worlds here on earth in the course of time. I would also speculate that they were witnesses to the creation of living creatures, of the various races of the flesh and blood celestial men called the sons of God, and also of all the other beasts and creatures that God created. Therefore, they acquired godlike knowledge of sciences such as of physics and genetics. It was this knowledge that gave them godlike capabilities and powers. Since the cherubim originated very early on in the history of creation, their history extends back to the very first clause of the first verse of the Bible, in the beginning God created the heaven. We can read in Job chapter 38 and verses 4 to 7 that God created the inhabitants of the earth, the sons of God's celestial men, before He formed the earth, which would become their home later on. It is possible that the cherubim, whose dwelling is with God, were also created before the heaven, the celestial city of God, was formed. So the cherubim may have participated in the building of the city of heaven itself. That is how far back their history goes. Before He became the first destroyer in creation, the anointed cherub was the first builder of creation alongside of God Himself. Like God, He was a mighty creature of spirit and power, who participated in the forming and shaping of God's creation and of His creatures almost from the beginning of creation. It is falsely and foolishly taught that angels fell because they lusted after women on earth. The anointed cherub, the prince of angels, did not lust after women. He set his sights much higher. He coveted the throne of God Himself. Angels desire knowledge and power, not the bodies of weak and mortal mankind. The anointed cherub desired to rise to the level of God, not lower himself to the level of man, a creature much lower than himself, as we can read in 1 Peter 1:12, for example, and also in Psalm chapter 8, verse 5. So before he turned to evil, the anointed cherub and other angels were builders of worlds that they later destroyed. And these angels and celestial men, the sons of God, were witnesses to God's creation being built and formed, as for example the earth, about which we can read in Job chapter 38, that they shouted for joy when they saw the earth coming into existence. So God built the cosmos, that is, He alone made the heavenly bodies and the earth, and stretched them out as is written throughout the Bible. In Isaiah 45:12, for example, we can read, I have made the earth and created man upon it. I, even my hands, have stretched out the heavens, and all their host have I commanded. However, the worlds that came into existence over time were built by creatures, such as by the cherubim and the angels in the celestial realms, and by the sons of God, flesh and blood men on the earth. Man has not built this earth, but he has built the world that sits on the earth, because God gave mankind knowledge to become builders, commanding Adam to replenish the earth and to be fruitful and multiply. Similarly, the celestial worlds and the subterranean worlds too must have been built by creatures that God created, to whom was given knowledge and understanding how to be builders, and knowledge of the purposes for which such worlds would have been built in the beginning. I believe the angels, led by the cherubim, were builders of celestial worlds up in the heavenly realms. Occult organizations such as the Masons call themselves builders. This association of creatures building and constructing dates all the way back to the beginning of creation. In the book of Job in chapter 38, God himself revealed that he made the first inhabitants of the earth, the sons of God men, even before he made the earth. This is probably true of the cherubim as well, that they were made before God made the city of heaven, which is their dwelling place. Angels also have knowledge and power over the operations of creation, such as power over the waters and the winds, and over the heavenly bodies, such as the sun. For example, we can read in Revelation 16:5, and I heard the angel of the waters say, in Revelation 7:1, and after these things I heard four angels standing in the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth. Therefore, it is not difficult to fathom that creatures with such knowledge and power must have built worlds of wonder across the cosmos of God. So the cherubim and possibly other orders of angels may have been the builders of the city of heaven, which is the abode of God, and of other celestial creatures. After all, the abode of God in Jerusalem, the temple that Solomon built, was built by man. So why could God's heavenly abode not have been built by the cherubim who were going to dwell in the heavenly temple with God, located in the celestial city of God, which is the heaven, which is the highest point in creation? The worlds built in the golden age of creation, beginning with the city of heaven above, were perfect wonder worlds built by perfect creatures in absolute perfection. God made the cosmos and gave it to his creatures to build the worlds for habitation by creatures of both spirit, angelic beings, and flesh, men and beasts. In ages past, various creatures have built not only the celestial worlds, but also the subterranean worlds, the underworlds, such as hell and Tartarus, and the bottomless pit beneath the earth. They also built worlds inside the seas and bodies of waters on the earth, even within lakes and rivers. Creation is inhabited everywhere. Man just does not have the eyes to see that which is all around him. This again, goes back to explain, to give us some idea of how long the history of creation really, how far back it goes. Because for all this to happen, for all these worlds which are just around here on the earth, even on the surface, we have so many ruins of so many different ages of time that, we have no idea how old the earth is and when building first began on it. And it is my opinion that we don't even see, or we have not even seen, the original worlds that were built by the sons of God, like the worlds of Atlantis, about which we only have some sort of, fictional accounts left. These ruins that exist, the megalithic ruins, such as in Machu Picchu and South America and other places, these are very recent in my opinion. But before then, going back ages and ages, there were like so many other worlds that have come and gone, and that's just here on the earth and inside the earth. Tartarus, hell, how far down do they go? How big are they? What exists down there? This is the mystery of God's creation, which is hinted at in the Bible, and then we get some other information from sources such as mythology, myths, legends, and fiction. But it is far, far bigger than we can comprehend. Therefore, the power and the knowledge of these angels, it was truly beyond our comprehension what they accomplished and what they were capable of. Okay? So, it is not without, it is quite distinctly possible that even the heavenly buildings in heaven were built by these creatures. Somebody built them, and I would say it was these cherubim and the other angels that God created in the beginning. Okay? The worlds built in the golden age of creation, beginning with the city of heaven were above, were perfect wonder worlds built by perfect creatures in absolute perfection. God made the cosmos and gave it to his creatures to build worlds for habitation by creatures of both spirit, angelic beings, and of flesh, men and beasts. In ages past, various creatures have built not only the celestial world, but also the subterranean worlds, the underworlds such as hell and Tartarus, and the bottomless pit beneath the earth. They also built worlds inside the seas and bodies of water on the earth, even within lakes and rivers. Creation is inhabited everywhere. Man just does not have the eyes to see that which is all around him. Okay? In Job chapter 38 and verse 4 and verse 7 we read, this is God speaking, "Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth?" So God is taking us back to the time when the earth was being formed. And what he learned here is in verse 7, when the morning stars, which the morning stars being symbolic of angels, and all the sons of God, who were the celestial men, shouted for joy. So God had already made the inhabitants of the earth, which were going to be the celestial sons of God, men, even before he made the earth. And there's something important we learn from that. This passage from Job 38 reveals that God made celestial bodies. God makes celestial bodies or a terrestrial body like the earth and gives it to his creatures, who then build worlds on them. The first inhabitants of earth, the sons of God, men, were made before their home, the earth, was made. So the cherubim might also have been made before their home, the city of heaven, was built. Therefore, they might have been participants in all of God's creation from the very beginning. So having been intimately involved in the building of creation from the beginning, is it any surprise that many of the angels, led by the anointed cherub, began to think of themselves as owners and masters of creation, as many men on earth think that they own the earth and the world? Did Jesus not say, what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and lose his own soul? Men are always trying to gain the world, even today. Okay, this understanding of the cherubim as powerful builders and creators in creation helps us understand why the anointed cherub rebelled against God, thinking of himself as God. In Ezekiel 28, it is written of the prince of Tyre that he thought of himself as God. This earthly prince is figuratively the prince of darkness, the first prince of darkness in God's creation, the anointed cherub, who was the first creature in God's creation to begin to think of himself as God. And you can read that in Ezekiel 28:2. "Thus saith the Lord God, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God, I sit in the seat of God." So the father of evil in God's creation was this angelic being, the anointed cherub. It was not Lucifer or Satan, who is the chief prince of evil in this time. So we can read that in Ezekiel 28:14. About this anointed cherub, that thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of God, thou wast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. So in Ezekiel 28, we're given a lot of information about this person. So let us study the history of the anointed cherub as written in the book of the prophet Ezekiel. First of all, he was no ordinary angel, but about as close to God in knowledge and power as any other creature in the whole Bible. No other creature, Lucifer and Satan included, come close to matching the anointed cherub in his majesty and high possession, second to God alone. The anointed cherub and the various orders of angels were world builders. They might have even had a hand in the construction of the heaven, the city of God, and of other celestial worlds in the heavens. The sons of God, celestial men, who were also created early in the golden age, might have worked together with the angels in building fantastic mythological worlds like Atlantis, which in my opinion were not at all myth, but they were real, and science fiction type worlds here on the earth and up in the heavens. To understand why the anointed cherub turned to evil, it helps to understand the position from which he fell. He was not a lowly angel, such as the rank of a private in the military. No, he was more like the president. Even more than the president, he was like the emperors of Rome, with absolute power and authority exceeded by God alone. God gave the anointed cherub so much knowledge and power that he must have been seen as omnipotent by those who followed him, and possibly even by those who did not join him in his rebellion against God. Now, this was not a mistake on God's part to make him so powerful, but he did so deliberately to serve his own purposes. For example, the Pharaoh in Egypt in the days of Moses was looked upon as a god, but his great wealth and power had been given to him by God for his own purposes. When Pharaoh stood against God, God used him to display his own power, against which Pharaoh was powerless. Egypt was destroyed and Pharaoh could do nothing about it. So too was the anointed cherub given near unlimited power and authority, which God would later overpower to reveal his own power to all creation. Then God's other creatures, including other cherubim and angels, came to understand that though God might have appeared weak in the first couple of ages of the anointed cherub, of ages of evil in the silver and the bronze ages perhaps, and even the angels themselves probably questioned if God would be victorious against this mighty angel, yet God had merely given him so much power so that he could demonstrate his own power when he crushed the rebellion of the sinful angels and cast them down to hell, as we read in 2 Peter 2:4 and in Jude verse 6. The anointed cherub's great power and position, given to him by God, which he perverted for evil purposes, also brought to God's creatures the revelation that power, without being controlled by love, will always be put to evil use. The anointed cherub had great power, but did not understand God's love, or he would not have rebelled against God. Evil exists in creation to bring us the knowledge of good by comparing it to evil, on which I have done many teachings in the past. So you can refer to those as to why evil exists in God's creation. The history of the anointed cherub does not begin when he turned to evil. It goes a lot further back than that, and it's a lengthy one. First in the Golden Age, in which he ruled creation as second in command to God, and then as the first prince of evil in the Silver Age. How long the Golden Age of construction and perfection lasted is impossible to determine, but I would estimate that it lasted much longer than any of the subsequent ages. Therefore, to fully understand the history of the anointed cherub and of the fallen angels, it is important to understand that he was the governor of creation, appointed by God for a very long time before he turned to evil. So his history does not begin in Ezekiel 28:15, on the day when iniquity was first found in him. It goes back almost to the beginning of creation, when he was perfect in his ways for almost the entirety of the Golden Age. Actually, he was perfect in his ways till the entirety of the Golden Age. The Golden Age actually came to an end when he turned to evil. Up to the end of the Golden Age, he was perfect in his ways. So what was the duration of the Golden Age? It may have lasted from tens of thousands to millions of years. So this creature and the rest of the fallen angels, they have a very long history in which they learned so much in far as construction and building and, even the creation of life itself is concerned. And that was the knowledge that they used later to build worlds such as the underworld, for example. Hell, for example. Hell was not made in the beginning. It was made later on. And all this construction and destruction that they wrought, it is because of this knowledge that they had acquired and powers that God had given them during the Golden Age. This history of his beginning in perfection is also documented in Ezekiel 28. What knowledge and skills were bestowed upon the anointed cherub by God in this age may only be speculated upon, but it is certain that no other creature since that time has come close to matching the knowledge and power of this majestic prince of angels. Not only did he acquire the knowledge of science and technologies and of energy, such as electricity used by God in creating the cosmos, but also the science of genetics and other natural sciences that God utilizes in bringing living creatures into existence. Such knowledge and power would later be used by him to build new and dark worlds, such as the underworld and the outer darkness, referred to by Jesus in Matthew 25:30, for example. But the most evil use of his God-given knowledge and power was in the warping of God's creatures through genetic modification and manipulation into abominable monstrosities and grotesque hybrid creatures. Satan, the serpent dragon, was most likely created by this anointed cherub. So Ezekiel chapter 28 verses 12 to 19 summarizes the history of the anointed cherub. We learn of his creation by God in perfection, of his majesty and royalty, and of his eventual downfall. In a few short verses, much can be learned about the history of creation before evil came, and of the anointed cherub and his angels before they turned to evil and brought darkness and corruption into God's creation, not without reason, but to serve the purposes of God. Nothing happens in God's creation which the Creator has not purposed, and therefore it goes without saying that this anointed cherub, though he might have thought himself as God, as many other creatures and men have thought since that time, but none of them are God. They all serve the purposes of God, as did Pharaoh at the time of Moses, and the other kings like King Nebuchadnezzar and the Assyrian kings, even the Persian kings. They were all puppets in God's hand, as is everything else that exists. So yes, he was going to turn to evil. That was his destiny, and that is the purpose for which he was created. He was used to educate creation about good and evil, about power and the misuse of power and what is real power. That's the purpose that was served by this anointed cherub. However, time had to be given. That is where understanding comes in. Yeah, all these things needed time. Okay, time to build, time to grow, time for creation to expand, and then eventually for evil to begin. And in Ezekiel 28:15, when evil was first discovered in the anointed cherub, that doesn't mean that it was on that very day that everything became dark and everything had been destroyed, and corruption and entropy were in God's creation. Darkness had covered it, as we read in Genesis 1:2. No, that happened a lot later. So that was just when the seed of evil was discovered in him, and the seed then began to grow and grow and grow and mature, and eventually it became the full-grown tree of evil in Satan. In the book of the prophet Ezekiel, we learn of his perfect beginning, of his long pre-evil existence before iniquity was found in him, as well as of his post-evil career as the first prince of darkness in creation. His long existence in perfection before turning to evil proves that creation itself began in perfection, which continued for a long age of time, in which worlds were built and filled with life. It is these worlds that came later to be destroyed and become dark. The prophet details the evils that he introduced in creation, such as the Babylon system of money and merchandising, of buying and selling, which systems are with us until today. His other sins, such as idolatry, violence, and warfare that he waged against God's creatures, eventually brought God's judgment upon him, resulting in him being cast down to hell along with the other angels that followed him. From Ezekiel 28, we learn the following. We learn of his beginning in perfection of beauty, his royal and majestic appearance, his knowledge and wisdom from the time of his creation, his skill in music, which is the language of God and of creation, his close fellowship with God with access to sacred places, Eden and the holy Mount of God, his ability to handle divine power, such as that stored in the stones of fire, his sins of pride and narcissism, his evils of creating money, of merchandising and trafficking, and buying and selling of God's creation, which God gave freely to all his creatures, his sin of idolatry, worship of the creature and of creation rather than the Creator, his sins of violent oppression of the inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, his judgment before all that had previously beheld him with fear and awe. So, yes, there's a great deal of detail about his history, both before evil and after he turned to evil unto the time of his eventual judgment. So, we will study these verses of scripture in Ezekiel chapter 28 in detail, verse by verse, even word by word, and we will develop a picture. We will come to see, understand that there is a great deal of history that is taught in just those few verses of scripture, both about the time of his perfect original creation and then the age or the ages in which he had once he turned to evil and began to grow darker, and what were his sins that we list that are listed in this chapter. And we shall see that one of them is not lusting about women, which is generally taught as the sin of the angels. That's not what it is. The love of money is the root of all evil, and this anointed cherub, is the creator of money. Therefore, the root of evil goes right down to the depths of hell, where he is imprisoned in the present day.
Have you some